Hi, welcome to Clean Conversations. I'm your host, Tim, and joining me today is Roy as we dive deep into clean language. Today, we're going to ask Roy, what is clean language?
Tim, maybe before we talk about clean language, we talk a little bit about ourselves so our viewers will know who we are. I am a hypnotherapist, NLP master practitioner, and a life coach. I've been doing this for about 9 years now, and I love working with people and see people go through changes. 2 years ago, I came across clean language, and it was a big mind opener for me that really fascinated me about how such a simple tool can make such profound shifts in people. So I decided to dive deeper into it, and here we are 2 years later, going to talk about this. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to, Roy. I also am newly certified hypnotist. I have been an energy worker for about 10 years now. And like you, when I discovered clean language and heard this famous quote from a very well-respected hypnotist that I love, James Tripp, if he could only have one tool to rule them all, it would be clean language. So I was hooked, and here we are today, starting off with clean language and seeing where that takes us.
Now, ask me, what is clean language?
Roy, I would love to ask you that question. Here we go. Drum roll, please. Roy, what is clean language?
What a fantastic question. Clean language is a modality that was introduced somewhere around the 80s by a gentleman named Dave Grove, who by now has passed away. And he was also a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, and probably a few other things. And he devised this modality in order to ask questions, to elicit information. According to the stories, it was many years in the making, and it was polished again and again and again. And eventually, it ended up with 12 questions. It is based on a very simple concept where you ask questions and then you use the words that you get as answers to ask the next question.
Okay, so something that I remember watching or reading about was always talking about just repeat back to what somebody says, and that just lets you know that you're paying attention and you're listening to them. So actually, I may have been practicing a little bit of clean language just in everyday life.
Probably not, because clean language is not just about repeating the words that the person says. Okay? First of all, it's about using those questions in a very specific format. That format is that the questions start with the word and, A-N-D, and you ask, and what is, plop, you put words that the person said, or where is words that the person says, and is there anything else about words that the person say? It can sound very strange sometimes because let's say a person is talking about stress and he says like, I feel very stressful. Then you can ask, and where is stressful? Or what kind of stressful is that stressful? Usually when people work with repeating words, if a person says, I feel very stressful, then I will be like, okay, so what makes you stress? But in clean language, you don't paraphrase, as they say, you parrot phrase. If a person says stressful, you say stressful.
Okay, so paraphrasing is definitely unclean.
Yes,
So that is like a golden rule almost.
you don't paraphrase, you parrot phrase. And this is a quote from the Bible book, which is called Clean Language by Wendy Sullivan and Judy Reese. Very good book, which you can buy.
Oh, I highly recommend that book. Yeah.
The other interesting thing in clean language, and most probably this is why it is also called clean language, because the clean refers to the fact that you, as the person who's asking questions, you do not bring anything from yourself. You stay clean. You don't bring your assumptions, your understandings, your ideas, your curiosity. You don't
Mhm.
ask questions in order for you to understand better, which usually we do because we feel that we need to understand what the person is talking about. So I recently worked with someone who said that he was a teacher, and I was like, really, I wanted to ask, what do you teach? Maybe I can use that. Maybe I can bring that into the conversation, but that is not a clean question. What happens when you work with people and you don't bring yourself into the conversation is that you give the person free rein to explore their own world. Most of the time, we speak and we don't really think about the meanings of the things that we say. We assume that we understand, we assume that they're very clear to us. The moment you start asking people questions about their own words, very quickly you will see them get stuck. Be like, oh wow, that's a good question. Uh, uh, and then they start thinking about it, you know?
Oh, I do. I've done that a couple of times when you just ask somebody, what kind of hunger is that hunger? And they stop and they're right. They're like, wait a second, I've never really ever given any thought to my hunger. It just
Yeah.
is. And the answers are really, really interesting.
Yes. And imagine that you ask a person that you love,
Oh.
what kind of love is that love?
That may not be an answer I always want to hear because
Maybe,
it's
but
going to be
maybe it
very
will
different
teach
than what
you.
my love is.
Well, most probably it will be different than from what your love is. So when we work with the clean language tool, it not only allow the person to really explore deeper very quickly, it also allows us to understand more about the views, the beliefs, the ideas of that person. Now, another beautiful thing about clean language is that it is truly simple. At least to begin with, you have 12 questions. You can almost randomly choose the question you want to ask and a word or a phrase that the person said, sort of mix and match, give it back to the person, and they will go into an exploration space. It's fascinating.
Right. So those questions are designed for them to go in, find some answers, unpack it a little bit. Roy, this is such wonderful information for the beginning of someone who's learning about clean language. But if someone wanted to dive a little deeper with us, where can we send them to go?
We have a weekly practice once a week for now. Maybe it will grow. Every Sunday, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. We have small community, which is growing, and you're all invited. You can be a complete beginner. You don't need to be a change worker. You don't need to be a therapist. You can be just a nice person and join us because the clean language tool is a tool that you can use everywhere in life.
Roy, that sounds like a great time, and I hope to see everyone there. And that brings us to a close here with Clean Conversations. I look forward to seeing you all next week when we start to break down how to start.
Right? See you and thank you, team, very much.
Thank you, Roy, as always.